of each CAPE, and Sebastián Galarce, that is the executive director of the Sustainable of Lisa DCV, a specialist for the Caribbean and Inter-American of Paula Tapia as well, that is the metropolitan area and submission of that sector.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos.
Hello, good afternoon to you all.
Recién soy la directora
I'm Laura Viegas,
y sostenibilidad
and I'm the
para
Director of
Canal de
Communications and Sustainability for Inkscape.
Empresas, ¿sí se dice?
I think Inkscape, right? Yeah. Going to talk about what is part of the Latin America, about the social value of the what's going on. I mean, meaning that what to do. So the sustainable value is what needs to be done, and we can work onwards. And let me tell you a bit about Inkscape because this is not that well-known company. We are behind many days, and we are a Chilean company, and um, we are a very important multi-brand. We are in all the continents and at the global framework, which is a model. Uh, what to do, how are we dealing with the things that are going on, and these are not sufficiently done because this is installed in Latin America. Latin America, we're in 16 countries, but we are not in Mexico, not in Brazil. So it's part of the volume of what we are doing, and this is how we work. And as I said, we are in 14 countries. We work with 6,500 people, and the 40% of the cars and all the things that are going on. And we have almost the 15%. We are the representatives of BNPW. We are DERCO as such, and all these type of things. And which is our purpose as a company? Our purpose is to deliver mobility to the communities of the world for tomorrow and forever. And a big part of the study of what we do is part of this purpose. In Inkscape, we have a platform of work and collaboration that is a species of syntax internal that is part of the study that I'm going to show you about. This is part of the work that we do in this sector. And why do we do these things? Because beyond the fact of getting together with the data, what we want is part of a role in the ecosystem of the mobility that is much more sustainable to deliver ideas and to deliver the insights of what we do for being in countries that are so transitional. So the idea is to call all the ecosystem and to discuss what do we do. What is this study about? We did two at the beginning of the year, one of them in Asia Pacific and one other in Latin America. We really got together with other countries, and in the case of Latin America, these are Chile, Uruguay, Costa Rica, and Ecuador. What have we discussed? These are two things. The first one is the one that we've been working on, and is related to the fact of the social idea of the own mobility. What is that? What is the role that performs and how it is complemented on the things that are going on, what it's different and how do we complement the rest. And basically, what we have discovered is that we have a role and what we have seen, and it's important to state it like that. It's a like a trend for an increase of the use of the mobility as such as a important role, and that is accentuated after the pandemics. After the pandemic, this started appearing with the Uber and others matters and other self car, and we increased that everything that has been going on with all these ideas. What do we use? Is more than the 50%, right? And what they tell you is that this is a mix of transportation that is huge. This is not the one they use the most, but like for example, something that appears that in Asia Pacific there is a 63% is the Asia Pacific, but um, it increases. It's something so important. So what we continue with is why do I prefer the car? I could say, okay, you think about Latin America, and you're thinking about that you don't have sufficient information, and we're asking to people of Hong Kong, and they say the same. So what's there on the back? Um, what are we using? I mean, is the 91% in the freedom and in the possibility to move around when I want. And uh, really, am I going to get to that somehow? And the other thing that continues relates me to the fact that it's going to give me a better life quality. This is going to make everything easier, and it gives me a better option to connect with my community and to connect with my family. And you see that, right? And you can think about what to do. Where is, I mean, for example, I wake up in the morning on a Saturday, wonderful sunny uh, idea. This beach is precisely the same. I want to go place, put everyone all together. This is something that allows me to work, and I have like someone that is waiting for me, and I'm going to use another mean. I can go by bus. I have to see what to do, and this feeling of freedom and the fact of being able to decide on my time, the dignity that gives me what I'm doing, is something that belongs to everything really. Now then, we're okay, right? So far, the car is something that we all want to have to move around. But what happens? We are here. The mobility makes sure about the global emissions that we have of CO2. And this is what we have, what is necessary. And thanks to that, we wanted to get on the technology, on the things that we are going to solve on this paradox. And the first question that we received is it was positive because when we said, okay, what do you think about the new technologies of the cars in a wide manner from hybrids? And the look is fantastic because it gives us these new technologies. So when you do this from Asia Pacific, you are in like 63. When you work on that and you start taking that into account, what do you mean by that? How ready are we for this type of change? We start looking at the difference between both regions, and what we observe is that in Asia Pacific, when we know the intention, what's the type of technology, and what are they going to do, we talk about what about this new technology? Uh, like these, they do have an hybrid car. And when we go to Latin America, we see, okay, what to do. And these are two-thirds of these subjects. This is something that we need to generate to work on this transition.
esta diferencia entre, bueno, todos están a favor, pero unos van a comprar y otros no. Entonces también
They're all
indagamos un
in
poco
favor, and some of them are going to buy, some are not. And the first thing we find is that this is related with the familiarity degree that we have with the new technologies. When you go and you ask uh, in Asia Pacific and some countries in Latin America, and they trigger Colombia and Costa Rica, they ask about the characteristics and what to do and the electrical thing. What are they going to do? So the first thing they say is that they are more sustainable, the collaboration to the environment is different, and the sustainability. And in both countries, we have a lower cost in the use. But when you start looking at all the variations and like what to do, I mean, do we have another level of technology or is it something more advanced? Or the benefits in the use of the service, the person says that they're not going to get lost. So when you see that in impact in Asia Pacific, what you discover is that it's going to perform much better. So the people they do have this level of familiarity, they do know about this level of activities, and that makes that this purchase intention turns out to be something better because what I do, I have to trust more in them. So the intention of the consumer is going to give us another role, something that we need to work on in our region. What are the barriers then? The largest one everywhere is the purchase. In Latin America, everything that turns out to be part of the reality is like, why don't they buy one? Because the price is still very high. This is not related with the price of the batteries, and they're going down every time more and more. And there's a long way to go to get near this price on the engines and the new technologies as well, of course. Well, we can think, okay, what about the hybrids? Are we following some sort of intention? And this does not allow me to do that. And if we go out, if, for example, going to the beach, that freedom that the car gave me, I don't have any safety on that because I don't know like what what is going to happen, and I don't know how I'm going to enjoy what I need to enjoy. So the next thing that we ask is quite a deliverable thing, and they head up for the industry to see if we're going to do something else to get it solved. And this is the reason why we understand that there's an ecosystem with each of the factors that has a role, and we as a distributor, we have the market of the technologies and getting it together to boost what's going on with the role, the standards to mitigate the costs that are initial and to promote the infrastructure. And they give us that. And of course, the OEMs, they bring us that incredible idea. And other ideas, what about the mobility? It has a special role, right? Um, there's no specific solution for all. We need to adapt them, and it's only possible to work on this transition if we all work together. That's what I wanted to tell you. Thanks very much for your attention. Thank you so much, Laura. Good afternoon. I believe for the time being now, there's something that needs to be done, and well, I ask you to really because the next panel we're running a bit out of time. Um, this presentation that Laura did was a very good thing because it's going to give us a very initiative of what we want to have today. And here we have marked everything that gets with the what's coming, and that's the idea to move on and to really get to all the availability and all the things that are moving, and for everyone that has had an experience of Chile and everything we've been doing so far. So here, due to the Ministry of Environment, we're moving on with this type of behavior, and that's a bit of the marking for all the things that are going to happen. And I believe that Laura's presentation it's a good starting point, and we are here. We are here sat all together, analyzing everything. But Laura said something about some things that we need to overcome, and we have the network, and we're all here introduced to each other, and I think we can start knowing which is from the point of view of financing, because the problem of the network due to the user, that network is needs to be installed and needs to be dealt with another cities, with other things, and also needs some medical idea for the business models that we can do and we deal with. So that from that point of view, we need that financing for that structure of loading with things. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be in this panel. The network of what's going on is very important for this opportunity because we don't have that clear, which is the model of the business. We're doing many things, we know that, and the sector has been evolving over time. When we started to work with the markets, we need many things, and that was completely free. So this is an infrastructure that we have to give free to be all together with the sales of the electrical vehicles. And in reality, this needs to be feasible as such. And it's a known business. And one of the most important doubts, so what's the use of the network for the private titles? What to do with that? We have different levels. We have the slowest ones. We have the commercial, the malls. Different countries have different ways of establishing the rate that we have in the loading stations. So the two strategies, one of them is established price by the government, and another one is part of, I mean, we need to take that into account. It's something that is seen. I've seen that in the environment and Egypt as well. These are prices that are established with the regulator every. We have some regulations on the energetic regulation areas. So therefore, that's the idea. The regulator has to approve the time, and we need to work on that and do something on the investment of the network. So in Costa Rica, we have that regulation, and is the one that establishes the price for the loading positions that we have constructed, and that's the company, after all, of the state when they created a full network for Costa Rica, and the bid got into an initial stage what ICE was electrifying the fleet and also had to do something about that. So that was financed by all the other models by the market in countries such as United States in many cases. And here in Chile, we have some suppliers that are private and they expose their price, there's variation, and that can vary. So people can compare prices, and also we have a model when there's a market, right? But there's a limit. So I believe that it's more important to have a model that has some prices based on what's going on with the regulation of the utility. Of course, it is regulated, and it's important for the regulator to know how much is going to be the investment and how much is going to be the return for the investor, and the government is going to establish that. So it's better to have a more open system in the incipient markets where we have a competition and so what we have in other countries. And the factor, the most important thing that we have with this type of model is a matter of incorporation with the use of the seasons. So that really impacts the incoming. It's a sort of a rate with the energy. And then the new markets, we have these stations that is very low. And it's a 5% including the most advanced markets. Not in the loading stations that are faster, it's not more than a 50%. And that has a lot of impact in the return and the deadlines that we have for the investment. So it's important to really work on a government to quantify that. It depends a lot on what's happening with the capacity and the buses. The buses is much more easier. It's easier really, and it has some established routes, so it's easier to project what's being used or not. It is something very important for these loading positions and the possible articles that needs to be used for the loading position. How much is that going to be? Is more than 90%. So, given the fact that it's difficult to predict the use, and it's difficult as well to justify the productions for the capital of this loading position, that are the most difficult. It depends on the capacity, but it's around 200,000 for this load. So it's important to see how we see some models that are impossible getting in to see like some loading stations and some job positions and everything that works together with electrical vehicles and some manufacturers and importers of vehicles as they put the Tesla part when it is in the United States and when they created their own network in Barbados. And in Mega Power, it's part of the importer what they're doing. So the companies, the electrical companies, they have worked on that because it's a new user and it's a new network. And also because the government has put some goals to deal and to increase uh, the access to the mobility. So therefore, it's something important to say that we have a more important model that is part of the loading and the service. We can work on other things, and that is a different model to be. And what is important is to allow an innovation like a flexibility as well. So in the case of the PIT, we have some examples where we have financed the projects, and that's the idea to put that area, the regulations and the policies that we need to open up for innovation, private investment, and given the fact that there's no consensus, there's no way we can do that with a better matter of accompanying this financing. Thank you so much. Thanks very much for your kind words. Thank you so much. And there are many things that are related with this sector, and that intentionality and the promotion of the public policies that say, let us go there, let us move towards that role, and talking about that effective public transition here in Chile. It's a matter of the determining factors to be able to move with the mobility. And what would you mention? Because that is a matter what to do. It's been a very intense thing, and our work in Chile has been very intense. And the idea is to say that what to do with a wheel, and I mean, do we have the wheels of a car and the public transformation? It's a matter of helping each other to put the possibility that we have to work on the countries. And the matter of doing that from the public thing is a commitment because the dignity is something that we need to do. And it's, I mean, it's very important. Some people cannot have that particular car, and those people they use that. Like of the people that get, I mean, those rates that are urban, where the states they need to commit themselves and they need to have the responsibilities of the multilateral and the private sector to give that step forward. And that is something that we have seen as a government, as a policy state that has moved on. And in Chile, we have given the example from the public sector. In Chile, Santiago is a city with more electrical buses all over the world after the city of China. This is not all of the sudden. This is part of a public policy considered, and that can go well over what is part of what's going on. We talked about the 50% in some cities of Latin America, in some are part of the emissions. This is the setting of those areas, right? So what about the mobility? Are we getting a standardized network? We need to have the laws. We need to have the standards. And we need to have the strengthening in that area. Because from the audience, we created the national situation of what's going on. Why do we use that and why don't we do it for the specific thing? Because there is a government, the second government of the city of Bachelet, we understood that we needed to put the priority. And the person that wakes up in the morning, woman, to get into a bus and talk 2 hours and serve to a family, that at the same time activates their daily life to help with people. That is our standard. That is the basis of our policy. And we have created a model that allows to put these figures in the electromobility 3,232, and these are the ones that we have today, and we are going to deliver the electrical buses. These are not only the like a third 40%, and less than that. And in the year 2023, and it has been said, it's like, what are we going to do in the office? I cannot I cannot tell that this is getting even better because in the week of the energy we're developing, I, I mean, like this is an European country, so this is not part of what's going on. The public transportation today is a matter of feeling proud, and we have to do it all together. And this is part of what we're going to do with the this these ideas, the strategic, the policy of the standard, and the financial model that is more steady in Chile is something very important. So, some European standards, they have different brands of buses. These are Chinese, but we have already tested some others. And this model has been so attractive that the investors all over the world they wanted to test it. We have some and we have some that are multilateral. And why is that so? Because this gives us some state ideas, as if the state wanted to issue something different to invest in these electrical buses. I would like to understand and underline the fact of these ideas to reach these sectors where the electromobility is going to permeate the message. And this message where everyone is part of the sustainable mobility and is a responsibility of everyone that is down here. What is going to be my contribution from the private company, multilateral, to achieve, to move on with the sustainable mobility? Because this is part of the life expectancy, how we're going to move on with what's going on. And this is not sufficient. This has to go hand in hand with the commitments of decarbonization and with the renewable energy to have the perfect circle and to deal with the other challenges that are collective and that in another ways that the government of course has to participate actively. Given that this is going to be recorded, um, let us see what to do with the ODT pollution, like the sun part, because not all of our countries in the region they deal with that. We have the CO2, like the electrical vehicle. You have an experience, right? You have the civil society. You've been working there. What do you see? How are we moving on with these steps forward? Are we doing things differently? Is something that we do today is electrical, but it is not the reality of the buses and the powers of mobility. So, from this perspective, it's something that needs to be done. What are we going to boost and how are we going to do that? It's a pleasure to be here with you. In this panel, before we start, I would like to consider something very important. Looking at these surveys, I'm a bit worried for the fact that the vision is the mobility of what is going to happen. I know it's electrical, but it leaves behind what's going on, not only for the vehicle part, it's a special thing that is moving on, and leaves all these impacts of priorities that the sport has. Because sometimes we do not get there. We try to generate a transversal policy that deals with a better life quality that is for real, and this is especially worrying in countries and means of development as Latin America and the southeast of Asia, because these are the countries that have the lowest rates of global relationship and what the future growth is going to be in Mexico on the global level. So if we think that what we want to have is the trip multiplied by the quantity of vehicles, although these are electrical, so this is going to get where we need to focus what to do, because that is the access of what needs to be requested. And Chile has focused on there because many parts of the region, many treaties have tried to increase this idea, something that Chile it's focalized and everything that is electrified. And everything is part of the pollution. And what do we want? What are we going to do? Our focus is technological, and is going to be focused on everything that we do in the engineering, in the reductions, and everything that we are going to do to comply with our commitments. And the only way we can see that is feasible, technologically speaking, is from everything that can be done. Um, for the batteries and everything that's going on. And some energetic things that can supply with some initiatives. And in that focus, there are some instances that need to be done. How do we want to regulate that? And everything that can be done. Really take that into account. And these are the importance of the technology. And then we have something that we want. This is the type of technology that we want to regulate from the beginning.
La otra es pensar si queremos incentivar esos modos de transporte y cómo lo hacemos para que no sea regresivo. Porque como digo, hay externalidades negativas que hay que tomar en cuenta y que también muchas veces nos pueden quitar el foco de los otros ambientes regulatorios que tenemos que abarcar para que esto sea una realidad.
Of the other environments that we have to regulate for this to be a truth, like the infrastructure of loading, it's not only that we are going to use in terms of infrastructure, but also the distribution of energy and also more basic aspects that are related to different connectors and communication systems that the loading process is going to have for this to have a simple transition. Nobody wants to have a serious problem. For example, if you go to connect your car and then there is another adapter and all the regulatory aspects are essential for this transition to be as easy as possible, because we are in this moment at the global level where we have to accelerate this process. We cannot go back in this path because we have this exponential growth, and also we have other opportunities in relation to the industrial transformation in the countries in the region that have very important sources of materials that are important for these technologies. And for example, like Brazil, they have very important market opportunities. They can also can help not only to create economic growth, but also to reduce emissions. And this is one of the great challenges that we have in these emerging economies. How do we grow, economically speaking, and at the same time we reduce our emissions? And that mismatch is still there. And transport is the area that is pushing this and driving this. We have a lot to do, actually. Thank you. Laura. And from what you have heard, I don't know if you can say anything else that includes, well, you said a lot in your presentation, but how do you see this change in terms of barriers, how you are looking at the public policies of the countries, how you have done this with the countries with this vision, and what are the things that are being done for this to happen? First of all, I would like to mention something about the motorization rates in Latin America. We see an opportunity here. When we think about the countries, the rate of how many cars there is for, we are talking, it's about the quality of life. Of course, more developed countries in Chile, this rate it's about 200. And when you think in England, where our company is, the rate is 670. And if you think in London or in other cities in England, what you see it is the coexistence between this rate that is so high with the public transport that is so efficient and that complies with the role of the public transportation. It is important to see this complementary factor everyone is complying with their role and everyone is thinking and supporting people lives quality in a different way and with more accessibility, of course, so we can comply with the dream of having the car. Of course, everyone wants to get to that goal, but having this perspective that it's with a sustainable perspective. And with that, and what you were saying about the public policies, there is this great barrier. If there is no incentives, in the case of Colombia and, and Costa Rica, they have better incentives going to the final customers, or they are talking about um, circulation privileges. And this starts to get into this transition easily. And also the thing that we have to consider all the technological alternatives of energy options. So all the energies have to be considered in this transition. Hybrid cars are a step. Any car that we buy today in comparison with a car that we bought 10 years ago, even the classic fuel. But basically, it doesn't mean that you have to continue. But with this motorization rate, it has the possibility to generate this option to have a greener fleet, and it's important what is happening with the difference of the processes that are ongoing in the different situations of the countries. There, you talked about something that is really important, that it is from the policies to design this policy that gets to the user. It's the incentives need to get to the final user because sometimes it's lost in the processes. And we have 5 minutes and 1 minute-ish. Can you have the final reflection? What are you taking from this panel? Because this has been a great panel. Is there anything that means something to you, or a dialogue that it's meaning something to you? So to conclude, I would say that really, I really agree that electrification of private vehicles is just a small part of the solution in the sustainable mobility. And it's very important, the electrification of the buses and the public transportation, to set an example. As I said not long ago with Costa Rica, the IDB, it is funding electrical buses in Panama, so it's an important thing. So the challenge of sustainable mobility, it's so big that we have to do all together. We cannot just work with one option. I think that is the final message. We just said it about the use of public transportation. I make the same call to leave the experience of the public transportation and to put the face of a woman in that transport. Because according to our last survey in Santiago, 52% of the ones that use the public system of transportation are women, and 65 of them are going to take care of someone else. But men, they do it only to go to work. So here we have an opportunity of equity in terms of the territory, and we can have the use of the city dealing with that mobility and caring of this possibility, because this is something that we have in power from Chile, that it is including women drivers. When we go to the office, there were less than 1,000. And today we have double that number. And most of them, they are driving electric buses. So the vision of electromobility is going hand in hand with the gender perspective. So I invite you to know the first report of electromobility published on our website with all this data and everything. It's available there. So we are working together with other organisms and the 2.0 version of this report that is going to be published in January next year. Data. This is very important. This transition we are talking, it's pushed by public policy. Clear it is. Even in China, where electric vehicles are cheaper than normal vehicles, this is a transition that is pushed by public policies. And if we want to develop good public policies, we need to have good baseline of information, something that doesn't exist in the region, in the area of transport. So this is a call for people who are here. Let's find better information to have better decisions. And that opens up great spectrum. And another important topic it is that we for example, that talks about fossil fuels, and that is a very difficult to overcome. In Ecuador, there is of the diesel subsidy that is being removed, and that is important. It's delicate, and that is going in favor of everyone. So we have to have better information and development of these public policies to remove the distortion of the market and to advance towards sustainability of the mobility that involves every aspect. And just to finish, I would like to come back that at the center of this transition, more than the technologies, we have people. And I think this is very clear in everyone's speech here. And these solutions have to be why they had to be adapted to the local reality and they have to be thought according to the reality of each country. And it's also important that the function of the government and the state is really important and it has to be aligned with the goals that the state sets to themselves. So we can reach zero emission and the regulation and the activities that accompany that transition to happen. So I think it is really important to align goals with the policies. Thank you very much. Just to repeat what Sebastian said, we already are in that path of data. If you're interested in that topic and you are here because of that, you are part of these and you are part of those documents. And 1 year ago, we started with the monitoring of the electric mobility, and now we have this white book that has given us a lot of pride and a lot of work, that it is a good source of data because there are some sectors that where we need to go deeper. Thank you, the speakers, and thank you everyone for being here. We would like to say thank you to the speakers. We are going